Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome to Flat Out Elected. This is your XOMG42 pillbox. I'm here with the captain of this ship, Knowledge Scavenger, aka the Bad Christian, Paula. What is going on with you today? We got some interesting topics, including the Noah's Ark story of the Bible, and of course, the number one topic on the flat plane of existence right now, the biblical flat Earth. Paula, how's it going? Using Randcam's picture, by the way. Don't get confused, everybody. So. What's going on?
I was going to tell them that here in the Dominican, our voice changers don't work very well. They don't last. And so, we had all those storms. And so I sound like Knowledge Scavenger tonight. But, oh, well, anyway, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Couldn't be better. It is a beautiful day here in the Sonoran Desert. Right now, it is 524 west of the Rockies, south of the 33rd parallel. I hope I don't sound too far away. I do not have my headphones set up right now, so I'm just going to try to work on that, get this fixed. Also, another topic. Let's see, how do I sound in right about now? Is that any better?
Actually, as long as you're not moving your microphone, it sounds better because you get a lot of static.
You're kidding.
No, you get static.
I know.
Right.
That's what you told me last time. I remember that. Yeah, I don't know why. Is it still staticky right now?
Little bit.
Is it really? Okay, then let me just go back to that.
Yeah, what you had before was fine. I could hear you.
Yeah, it's really quiet though, so it was better the other way. So I'll go back to this way. Okay, we'll work it out either way. Another thing that we got to talk about, no one has talked about this in the 2.5 years I've been witnessing this flat Earth eruption, is the distance to the horizon calculators. The only person that has even mentioned it is Jibby Jedi. We had a conversation about 7 months ago about this topic. He was a little bit worried because there's a schizophrenic group out there. I don't know if you know about these people. They're called the Concavers. They're very weird. They remind me of the Shoemaker Levy 9, what is the Heaven's Gate cult people. And Jimmy was saying, oh, that's weird. Maybe it's curving up, and oh my goodness, it's going to be I go, Jibby, because we're talking about Auguste Piccard, right? His claim is that there's an upturned edge. I'm like, well, there could be a few reasons for that. It's probably some sort of, canopy anomaly, or it could be a bunch of issues. But an upturned edge doesn't mean you're inside of a cell, for one. Number two, we're looking at distance to calculations of these distance to horizon calculations, and they say at sea level, one of them says 15 or 12 to 15 miles. Now, that's got to be a mistake, because in the flat deserts of Arizona, I can see mountain ranges 30 and 40 and 50 miles away. No, that's because they're mountains. Well, yeah, guess where the horizon is? It's not in front of the mountains. So we got a serious problem here. This is, again, here's the pink elephant and the purple dragon have reemerged. Distance to horizon calculators are dead wrong. If I had to guess right now, I bet they're about 4 times wrong. I bet you whatever it says is probably, you can use the inverse square law, and that's probably a lot closer to reality. At 40,000 feet, if I remember correctly, I can't remember correctly, so I'm not going to make any stupid statements right now. All I remember, though, is at sea level, it's something being 13 miles, and somebody said 3 miles. Like, what's wrong? So what is this distance to the horizon calculation enigma? What do you think about this?
I don't know. I haven't really dug into that, but I do know a little bit about lensing. I've done some videos on that, atmospheric changes, and how the light goes through different changes of density. And I don't know, as far as the calculations go, I just looked one up quick on Google, and they have to take that into account. I mean, you would have to have perfect conditions, which we're never going to have, and it's going to vary from one spot to the next, especially if you're looking over water, where there's going to be a lot more humidity and variations in humidity, and more reflection of sunlight and heat off the water, depending on the conditions again. And especially there in the desert, like you said, it's going to be a lot more heat. I wouldn't know how to compare, the light as far as that goes, bouncing off the water. Water should cool a little bit, but still, you got all these variables.
I think you just nailed it. Over the water, it's probably a lot shorter because you obviously have more humidity, though. So it's
Yeah.
probably let's say it could be, well, it's not going to be 3 miles. I'm sorry. Let's say it's 15 miles on the water. Okay, but maybe in a dry desert here, maybe 40 miles. I mean, some of these mountain ranges, I don't believe these maps anyway. There's no such thing as an accurate map. Dear Lord, people, let's relax on the AE conundrum that we've been listening to. This is so ridiculous, but there's no way they're even 50% off. So these mountain ranges have to be at least 50 miles away, and we're looking at these objects. So something is clearly wrong here. And of course, the higher you go, the farther you can see, which of course they think that works on a ball. Excuse me. But then I say, well, how about you go to a football field, lay your head down on the end zone, and put your head sideways, the side of your face in the grass, and see if you can see the end zone. I don't think so. Then when you stand up, you're going to be able to now see the end zone. It's not because the football field is a ball, Paula. Sounds crazy, right? So that works on a flat plane. You see, on a ball, you can't see over a ball. See, it's a ball, so there is a limited view, and it doesn't matter if I can zoom in on something. It's not going to magically bring back objects like a roller back to me. I mean, this is just basic common sense with visual optics. I mean, this is 101. Hello, you can't see through objects by zooming in on them. So either way, the flat plane of existence is absolutely an empirical fact. That is the only empirical fact I literally believe you can prove almost anywhere on this flat plane of existence. But this distance to the horizon calculation has some serious problems. So I want to point that out, not just for us, but for Jibby Jedi and a lot of other skeptics out there. They kind of get scared once in a while. Well, there's a reason we don't trust these people. Why are we trusting anything they say? You have to throw it all out. That's the thing. It's like the reason I can accept the whole Bible is because I can accept the whole Bible. It's all true. It's all there. Black and white, sometimes red. The reason I can't accept the government's word is because I can't accept the government's word. This is all government, monkey man science. No matter who you're going to get it from, they're all the same. It's all a lie. So you got to throw it all out. And that's my final statement on that.
Yeah, I highlighted the word assumes on the page. We always have assumptions, but the thing about that drawing there on the side, you would have to be looking down. Because if you're standing on that ball at point V, say, for example, you're going to look at a tangent to the ball from the surface there. Like if I put my cursor over here, hopefully people can see it. This spot right here, if this is the curvature, okay, and I'm standing here, this little stick, say I'm this V person, I'm not looking at my feet. I'm looking horizontal to the ground, okay? And horizontal is a tangent line to that circle. So it's going to be going like this out here, not down like this. Now, supposedly they, by correcting for, the center of the circle and taking, these R's are radii, this is, each one is a radius, and they make a right triangle out of it and so forth. But in practical terms, nobody's going to look at your feet, at the ground. You're going to look horizontal to the ground and say, if like you say about putting your head on the ground there, even if you're not, if you're 8 feet tall, you're still really close to the surface of the earth compared to what size they tell us. And you're going to be eventually looking off into space because, I mean, we all know that if you go out at night and you look straight instead of down at the ground, you're going to see stars, which are allegedly way far away from the earth. So therefore the earth is curving down towards your feet, it's still going away from you, but it's down. That's why you can look straight and see the stars. So this red line does not represent the distance to your horizon from this point, this tangent line on the circle. It's just basic math there and basic trigonometry and things. I mean, I don't get, intuitively, I haven't looked into their calculator and seen exactly why they do this from the point in the center here, because if you're standing on the surface, you're not looking down there, you're looking out. And so the tangent is here, and this distance should be as far as the eye can see, whatever that means. So the problem is that this distance of this line is not representing where a person is going to look. So distance to the horizon is just the limit of optics. It's not anything to do with curvature, because we're not looking at the curb. We're not looking at the ground. That's just the way I see it.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, it is called a vanishing point. When these objects get so far away, they're obscured anyway. It's like these people start at, well, how come I can't see Beijing, China from California or Japan? It's like you can't see the mailbox down the street, and you can see the end of the street. Do these people not realize that objects do not remain the perspective same size the farther they go away? Do they realize that objects appear to be getting smaller? I know, big crazy idea there. So the object is not going to remain the same size, it gets smaller. But with the indoctrination and the brainwashing is so thorough from cradle to grave, they literally are there. They have no choice but to say these ridiculous, crazy, and insane things and constantly ignore our just normal, everyday, basic observations that are based on the principles of a straight line, including, I don't know, about 500 years of military artillery and gunnery experiences through missions that are all dependent on straight lines, rather if it's a 1 mile away shot, which is considered far, by the way, or a 30-mile away shot, which they were doing in the 40s. We used to have these things called battleships. Paula, you probably remember these. They even, I think, refurbished one in around 1990 for the Gulf War, so that we could spend a few $1 million. I think it cost more to refurbish the battleship in 1990 than it originally did to make. But anyway, we were these vessels, these ship vessels, were shooting other targets, other ships at past 25 miles away. We're talking the Battle of the Bismarck, the most famous battleship battle that I can remember. It sunk the hood, I think, with about 2 shots. Got real lucky and hit that ammunition depot on the boat, and that thing went down in about 2 minutes. And they started exchanging shots, I think, around 25 to 30 miles away. And I'm just going by the history books. These are not my claims, okay? I wasn't there. But we do have some footage of these ships on the water, some black and white grainy footage that we have seen saved. So it's not all fake. There are some truth. There are some real things in history, believe it or not, knowledge scavengers. So, this is hundreds of years now of this dependency on the idea of straight lines. Not just the horizon, which is a horizontal line that is the vanishing point between the sky and the ground or water below. That's what happens. The boat's straight out there. That's why how many thousands of videos do we see with these P900s zooming in, and here comes the boat. There it is. You zoom back in, it doesn't remain. It disappears. And it's just common sense. I mean, it doesn't take but 30 seconds to look into this and go, okay, that's not a ball. Cameras do not magically see over balls. They can't see over a hump of water or through a wall of water, right? So they have destroyed the common sense. It's never been about evidence. They've destroyed the psyche. They've destroyed the spirit in the human being by this deception. And that's why it is so important for people who are going to be able to be honest with themselves and who actually want the truth. It doesn't matter if you're not interested in the truth. If you want to think that you accidentally came from monkeys because they kept dying and because you're on a magical ball, that's fine. I'm not going to be able to help you, but there are probably many thousands, if not millions of people that are going to wake up to this truth. And the nice thing about it is that whoever wants it is going to find it, Paula. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you have to want to find it, and you have to have a way to find it. And those are two things that are lacking from a lot of, I use the term kindly, conversations that happen online, because people, as I say, but want to seek truth but not find it. And they'll even go so far as to say, well, if you think you found the truth, then that's conceited, because nobody should say they have the truth. Well, everybody does it every day. They say, oh, you're wrong, therefore they must have the truth. And then they tell you you're not allowed to find it. So it's to the point where you have to recognize when you're talking to someone who has no clue how to find truth and will get mad at you if you say you found it, and not waste your time, because what is the point? That's what, I've used the word solipsism before. If you look it up, it's just a me religion, the most narrow-minded religion of all. All truth is whatever I decide it is inside of me. This is my truth, and you have some other truth, but yours is wrong if you're a Christian, of course. And that is a very narrow-minded religious view, because it makes you God, it makes you the center of everything, and no one can disagree with you or tell you you're wrong. And yet, like I said, so many people who take that approach will get angry at people who disagree with them and have a different truth, especially if it's a Bible truth. And the other problem is not being willing to stand on one way of finding truth. There may be different ways to find it, but each person has to decide. This is called epistemology, where how you know what you know. And when you get to that point, the reason people don't go there is because it means you have to take something as a given, something on faith. Because if you are deciding how to find out true from false, that in itself is an arbitrary thing. It's something you just decide you accept. And so if you're using just choice for no reason other than it makes sense to you, then you have faith and you can't avoid it. And then you're going to have to be consistent with that. And an honest person, a genuine seeker of truth, will pick something and stick with it instead of going, well, yesterday it felt like this was true and today it feels like that is true. And then you'll never find anything. How can you? And like I said, some people don't even want you to find the truth. And for example, like I had highlighted in this little article here, one of these distance calculators, it says, it gives you all this stuff about target distance. And it says if the target distance is beyond the horizon, the target might still be visible. In other words, we said all that for nothing, because we can have fudge factors or ad hoc explanations if you do see something you're not supposed to, like that one famous image that the weatherman just brushed off as a superior mirage, and trying to explain something that should be impossible. And yet, if you try to pin any of these places down, any of these source material websites down, there's a fudge factor somewhere. You look around and you'll find it. So people just have to decide how they're going to find truth and whether they want to find it.
Wow, that is amazing. They never fail, do they? If I would have only read the paper, so I would have seen that. Oh, by the way, just kidding. It actually could be much farther. That's just like my evolution book, and boy, I love my evolution book. It says, by the way, we hope to sometime find evidence for this claim we have. And then on page 619, it says, oh, by the way, creationists are crazy. Don't tell anybody about this part of the book. Gosh, I should have known better. Why didn't I read more up on it? They always slit their own throat. They always kill themselves every single time. You just give them a little rope. That is embarrassing. So they're admitting, okay, we can see objects farther. Now, and here's another thing. Now I gotta be honest with you. I got a big flat Earth truth that I'm going to give out in the near future, Paula. If God decides to have me do so, we will let him be the decision maker on this. But in the near future, I have a big flat Earth proof that I'm going to release if, again, Jesus Christ allows me to. But let me side note on this. Radar systems, how do people think radar works? Like, that's the point. Radar sees farther than you can. Okay, that's kind of the whole entire point of this. You see, radar goes out farther, uses the electromagnetic spectrum, and radar works like a light. So if you take like a flashlight and you put an object at the end of one room, the flashlight at the other, and you have, let's say, a toy car there, you're going to see a shadow of the toy car. Well, that's about the best representation of how radar works, right? Where the radar beam is going to, of course, that's how it does. It registers that image or that radar cross-section of the vehicle that it has detected through its waves that, of course, go straight out. So I don't understand what the issue here. Like, don't you realize that that's the whole point? Radar is pointing straight. So their claim is going to be, you already know what they're going to say, especially with these crazies like, what's his name, Chucky the doll, I forget his name. Anyway, he's going to say because of refraction, radar just normally bends over the ball. But wait a minute, he said refraction was why it looks flat. So refraction makes things flat and bendy at the same time, much like space, Paula. It's very hot and very cold. So that's where we're going with this. It's the same argument, just like the textbooks always give themselves away, just like this website did. No matter what you do, all you got to do is let these people destroy their own argument. And there's just a million ways to be wrong. There's only one way to be right. And that's why, when us Christians try to tell people there's only one truth, that's because obviously 2 plus 2 can't equal more than 4. 2 plus 2 can equal 4. That's it. It's 2 plus. If not, if you're saying there could be multiple gods, or we could be in a simulation theory and it could just look like it's flat, then you're saying there's no such thing as truth, which is absolutely a hardcore form of Satanism. And that's a scary word, but that's the reality of it. That is the absolute truth, that you are either going to understand this truth or it's satanic. I mean, everybody knows that when they go to the store, especially the thrift store, and they buy their 6 shirts for $10, Paula, but actually the total came out to $9.57. They're going to want their 43 cents back. I'll guarantee you that,
right.
Paula. They're going to want their 43 cents. Then they're going to come on the internet and tell us we're in a simulation. Oh boy, let me tell you. I mean, and that's the reality of it. This has nothing to do with evidence. This is a spiritual war. Even Patricia Steer mentioned this, I believe it was a week ago, that we're in a spiritual warfare. And she's not even a Christian. How does she know that? Because it's the truth. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, when you come to a truth, it just doesn't move. It's it. The earth is flat and stationary. I'm sorry, there's no curvature. Either way, you have to have some sort of non-flatness for it to be anything other than flat. So there's only one truth. It doesn't matter what it is, Paula. Right. Either that's a cat and that's a bat. It doesn't mean that just because they're very similar, you can see the similarity, cat, bat. It doesn't mean, that's still a cat. Like, these evolutionists will say, no, actually, because I've asked these people this, I go, well, what if a horse goes back into the water for a few generations and grows fins? They say, oh yeah, it's still a horse. Oh, that's how this works now, right? So they'll say that no matter what, up and down, left or right, it's what they want. It's their belief system. It's their idolatry. It's their self-worship, no matter what. That's why there's only one truth, and it only works one way. Just like back in the day when I worked at the dealership, and I remember this awesome technician, we'll just call him Bill, and I went back and he had this 1997 Jeep Grand Cherokee all ripped apart. The dash was out of it. And then I saw the customer came by, wanted to get like a pair of glasses out of the car. And anyway, the customer left. But so the car was finished a week later. I think they had to replace, I don't know, a heater core or something weird. Or anyway, customer brings the car back the next day and says, oh, this looks askew. Something looks wrong. And it's like, sir, it only goes back one way. It only fits one way. So when he went back there and saw that it was all torn apart, it psychologically rearranged the way he thought about his own car. It's psychological. It's spiritual. It has nothing to do with listen, sir, these screws only bolt in one way. If I don't, they get threaded wrong and I have to take them out, and you're going to notice that, it's just really weird how the mind works when people are trying to, I guess, maybe gain something, or maybe try to say like this isn't right because maybe they wanted something out, or maybe that there's a certain feeling. Let's be honest, people do things because of the way they feel, but that's what this is about. So I'm sorry, these things only work one way.
Yeah, it's the difference between facts and evidence, because it's like with the creation evolution debate, which isn't quite as triggering now that there's flat Earth discussion going on, but where everybody has the same rocks to look at, the same geological formations to look at, but what you interpret those things to mean is where all the disagreement is, every bit of it. Because everybody can go, pick up the same rock or dig up the same thing that they find that looks like something else and say, well, I think it's this, and another one says, no, it's clearly that. And it reminds me of a Sherlock Holmes episode where Holmes is talking about circumstantial evidence, and he says, to Watson, you can look at one thing and think that all the evidence points exactly in one direction and shift your focus just a little and it all points someplace else. It's all in the perspective of the person who's looking. It's just like you were mentioning about, if a horse goes back into the water, will it get fins or whatever you said. And I remember a documentary that just made me laugh. It was like 10, 15 years ago. Where they were talking about how these dolphins were coming up, almost beaching themselves in order to catch the certain kind of fish that would, jump out of the water. And they said, see, in time, this is how whales, grew legs and got up onto the land. And I was rolling on the floor because in that same documentary, they said see this polar bear, he swims a lot. He's going to turn into a fish in a million years. It's just, whichever happens. And on all seriousness, I don't know how the guy, I think it was Stacy Keach narrating, I don't know how he did not laugh reading those words, because it's the same guy reading both things, about 20 minutes after the other. It's just unreal.
Well, they wanted to, but they busted his lip. Okay, so anyway, that's the thing. You'd think people would think, but no, they love to be told what to believe, because I'm so much smarter than my friends at work right now and at school. I get to tell them how smart I am now. That's really what it comes down to. Isn't that weird? So you're telling me something already lives in the water. It has to live in the water, but it's going to try to come out of the water, and then it's going to and then you go, what's insert here? What happens next when it runs out of water? You can even talk about I asked this guy once, about a crocodile. I said, what do you think is going to happen if a crocodile runs out of water? Because I've seen this, these things happen, because I'm a reptile fan. I'll be honest with you. I love God's creatures. So I study a lot of reptiles. And you can observe these things in Florida. These aren't mysteries. And the guy said, well, if it runs out of water, it can do something like go hide in the bushes. And I thought, wow, all I need is bushes. I don't even live in water. I don't even live in water, Paula. But if I run out of water, they cut the water off. All I need to do is go outside and find some bushes to eat. And then you're good to go. You don't even need water. So what has to happen to somebody to do that to their psyche? What has to happen is something I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've just never allowed that type of demon into my mind. And I was an absolute deceived slave to this world 20 years ago. I did. I really thought, well, they showed me on TV that, the monkeys, the cartoons with feet. So I guess, that's my ancestors, obviously, they turned into black people, and then of course black people evolved, and and now of course we're more evolved than black people, of course, but we won't mention that. We'll pretend that's not what they believe. And I used to believe that, and I don't believe in racism. There's no such thing. We are a human race, but in that term, it is absolutely the most bigoted ideology in the history of mankind. And that's why I allow the lie of evolution to stay on my plate, because it is so great to destroy.
Yeah,
and there's, I don't know what to compare to it.
Yeah, it's like with the fruit fly experiment, where they wanted to, because of the short generation length between, from each successive generation of fruit flies, they thought they could accelerate evolution by applying various kinds of radiation and so forth to them. And they had to stop the experiment because all they got was mutated fruit flies. They didn't get horse flies, house flies, dragon flies, super flies. They didn't get anything but fruit flies with maybe 3 eyes or 6 wings or something like that, but they were still fruit flies. And what does it take? It's just like when they use the term living fossil. That's an oxymoron, because they found, as the coelacanth, of course, is the most famous example of something that they thought had been extinct for millions of years because of where they found it in the rocks. And then they found a living one and said, oh, we didn't falsify our theory just now. We have a living fossil. You cannot falsify evolution, and therefore it is unscientific by definition, because no matter what you do, no matter what you find, rabbit in the Cambrian argument, and that's essentially what the coelacanth was, they will not give it up. Or when they find dinosaur bones with viable blood cells inside, they think, wow, they can last longer than we thought. Not, wow, we've had our theory debunked. There's that rabbit in the Cambrian again, because we know blood cells and we know how long they can last. And these weren't preserved in a peat bog or anything like that. How did they still, we could still examine these in a microscope in a laboratory, and the people who actually honestly looked at it and said, yeah, this can't be that old, they get ostracized and they get heavily criticized by their peers. So much for peer review. It's more like a tribunal, and just as religious. So I don't know. It's cognitive dissonance, and I don't know what to tell you about that. You can see I got a page up here for Noah's Ark, because that came up the other day. And this is a very good website. I put a link in the chat to it a little bit ago. And worldwide flood. And Of course, they got a ball Earth there, but it's no biggie. It's not a link or anything. You can't see what they say about it.
But what's funny is that they say worldwide, which is the correct statement. Just for the record, go ahead.
Yeah, they didn't say global. It's the way everybody used to say worldwide. But this is a very good site on the nautical issues of the Ark and how much sense it made and how really huge it was and what a good stable shape is. And the word Ark is what interested me as far as the recent discussion the other day about how many arcs there might have been, because that's got so many levels of fail, I don't know where to start. But if you look at this little thing on the side here, it's a very good study in studying, how you look at these things. I'm thinking a little bit slow to come up here, but I've got 2 browsers and like 4 windows open, so hopefully we won't crash. It goes into detail on Hebrew and Greek words for ark, first of all. Hopefully the screen won't, there we go, it's a little bit delayed. And they go over point by point by point which thing this could mean. Is it an Egyptian word? Is it a basket? Is it a box? And they go through all the different flood stories and all sorts of things. And then they do these really good illustrations. Here's the word that means, and this is the Greek word, and they did the same thing with the Hebrew. I must have rolled past, but I don't want to risk rolling back again. But Greek word, boxy kind of thing, Greek word, boxy kind of thing. Totally different word for the ark that Moses as a baby was put into, and it was coated with pitch and put in the water. So these are really deep details on what an ark even means. And you would have to compare those words to the words in other languages and see what they meant in their context and their language and their culture. And this is the kind of research you got to do if you want to find out what an ark is. Okay? And they can't even say for sure. Their conclusion is like, well, it could be this, it could be that. No, it doesn't just mean a box. It doesn't just mean something coated with pitch. It doesn't just mean something three-dimensional and rectangular. So it doesn't, they can't be that precise. And so to say they found arcs, that they think that there must have been multiple arc stories. Well, did it ever occur to them that just as viable and more sensible and more Occam's razor an explanation is that there was one flood and everybody took the stories with them as they spread out over the earth afterwards? Because even in, I'm told, I don't know this for sure, but I'm told, because I don't read Chinese characters, that Chinese character for flood has something to do with a boat with 8 people in it. And these stories are very similar. Yes, people will talk to me about Gilgamesh, but in my opinion, Gilgamesh was Nimrod in the Bible, the one who opposed, the main opposer of God, who started all false religion, started the Babylonian religion. I have 2 videos on Babylon. But the thing is that when a copy, many copies imply an original. So if everybody's got a similar story, don't they think maybe there was one event that affected the whole world and that it had to do with 8 people in a boat that survived and repopulated? Gosh, that matches the Bible. So why should there be multiple arcs?
No, then we can't have that, though. Then we got to change the theory. Yeah, change the theory, though. If it's going to match the Bible, we certainly got to change it. Sorry.
That's the thing. It's exactly like what people do with evolution. It's unfalsifiable. They will believe anything and everything except the Bible's account. Just because it's the Bible. It's a supernatural antagonism that can't be explained really any other way, because they will tell you it's okay to believe in candy canes at the North Pole before they will tell you it's okay to believe that the God of the Bible created this realm. That's just how it is.
Well, how about this? Yes, I'm not going to name any names. A couple of days ago, somebody said something about the Ark. They said, if you only had a bunch of white people on the Ark, that wouldn't make sense. And I thought, wow, wait a minute. Wait a minute. How do we know, first of all, that white people even existed back then? For one, I don't know if there's any evidence, because we're talking 44,000 plus years ago. I mean, there's some people that say 2,000 years ago, these great civilizations were brown. That's fine. Well, then we really got a problem. I don't even know of white people in the sense that when we think of the word white people, so that's an argument. So here's my point. Well, today, the only people that really carry all the genetics, or as far as the wide spectrum from extremely dark skin to white skin, are black people. This is a reality that geneticists have proven. And not just proven with geneticists. Recently, a black couple in Africa have given birth to a white baby. Get this, not an albino, not just a normal albino mutation within the genetics. This is an actual, the pigmentation and other features were changed, and it wasn't like the kid had red eyes. Because an albino, you can have a white albino from white parents, you can have an albino from black parents, and you can see those are albino animals as well with that same genetic deficiency. This is not the case. This person also, this baby, excuse me. I know some people don't believe in babies today, but let's not get into that. It had blonde hair as well. That shocked me, especially with all the weird ideas with the Hebrew Israelites going crazy and telling everybody that you have to be black to be. And that, trust me, I'm not saying that black people are more racist. In fact, I know that for hundreds of years, black people have been oppressed in a way that is extremely shameful. They have been massacred in many ways. So don't get me wrong here. I'm talking about the fact that this whole racism idea is one of the biggest deceptions in the world. It is in the top 5 greatest deceptions in history. There is no races. There is a race. And the fact of the matter is, you have to be dark-skinned to be able to produce all the different variations of people with their colors, idiosyncrasies, details, things like that. We're all human beings. That's as far as the gene pool allows, but we're not all robots. We're not all carbon copies of each other. God loves variety. Well, the black woman now still has all the genetics and has probably the strongest genetics. I don't know if that's going to be called racist or whatever, but that's the reality. The reality is these people exist today and can produce almost anything when it comes to any type, if you want to call it type of human. There's only one kind. But if you want to say skinned or color of human, if that's on your vocabulary, I believe it is the black woman has those genetics now. So if these people were a family of 8 and probably had some dark tones of their skin aren't their children described? I mean, isn't it Ham? So who has the idea of them all being white if at least one of their kids is mentioned as being dark? Whose idea is that in the first place? And don't these people understand that, these people exist today and don't always produce the same combinations of genetics? That's why we're changing. We're not robots. We're not insects. We are much more special to our creation. So again, one of the greatest deceptions ever, and it still is destroying the minds of even people that think they're in the truth. So it's very weird.
Yeah, on genetics, I don't know if you've been able to see the screen. I had a picture, it's not a very good one, on this website that I had linked from mine that showed the mixed race couple, where one baby was absolutely white in every way, all the features and everything, and the other was absolutely black in every way with all the features, not just the skin color. And we get a chart here of just how genetics work, where if the parents have the widest possible combination of genes, dominant recessive genes, depending, as I said, on the parents, you can have any shade. And that's the thing, it's all shades. And what, in my opinion, happened because of what the Bible says, of course, especially, is that after the flood, you had still a pretty rich gene pool from Noah and his sons and their wives, that they were able to have these various combinations. And especially after the Tower of Babel, when the languages were confused, people don't intermarry then, and you get subsets, you get recessive genes that come to the forefront. And so who can say what a non-recessive gene, what Adam and Eve looked like, but they had all the genetic possibilities. They probably were a medium color. Just logically, it seems like a good thing to assume. But it doesn't mean they were African, so to speak, because that's a subset. Caucasian is a subset. Oriental is a subset. They're all reduced gene pools, and that's why these other characteristics come to the forefront, and you have so many variations within them. I mean, even in Africa, you got everything from light brown to jet black. And the same with white people. You got more reddish skin with more of the Native American kind of color, or South American, and you have the Orientals, and all these different combinations. You have people with very dark skin, but what would be considered light white person's features, like small lips and things like that. And there are some Polynesians with dark brown skin and blue eyes. So there's nothing that says that Adam and Eve had to be one extreme or the other. All they needed was the right set of the right genome, the right combination possibilities, and that's what it's always going to be. If you intermarry only in a small subset because of your language, you can't talk to other people, so you have your own society, and that's how it goes. That's how these recessive genes came to the forefront, and they really are all just the same melanin. They're the same, just different densities of melanin in the skin. And even, white people can tan. Some of them can, some can't, depending on your lineage. You may not have very much, if any, melanin at all, even without being albino, because even people with very light skin typically have some color in their hair. It's usually on the yellow side, or they have color in their eyebrows or something like that. An albino would not have any color at all in any hair. So there's all sorts. This is a science of genetics that works and is demonstrated to work. And this is how people have also done with plants, where it isn't genetic modification, so to speak, because it isn't artificial, but they would combine different kinds of plants for different features. And say, for example, like bananas, the paleo banana would be inedible because it was so seedy, and they have been bred to the point where you get mostly the fruit, and you can't even get seeds out of a banana. You have to plant bananas, is my understanding. So gene pools change and they get reduced. And so a person, you would have to do a genetic test, or just, like we said, we have the people with very different backgrounds have children, and even twins can be very different, it's like you were mentioning earlier. So there's nothing superior or inferior about a particular set of genetics. It's just not what makes a person. There is no hierarchy by genetics. You would have to demonstrate better ability or better intelligence. And here again, you still have very subjective measuring sticks for those things, because, one person's awesome ability is another person's worthless ability, depending on society. So there's really no way to have a pecking order of mankind by any genetic quality, because they're all just variations on the same template,
Right. What you just mentioned is the balance. There are some things I'm good at, and there's some things I'm terrible at. And there's obviously, that's just how this world works. And sometimes people have disabilities, and it's not even from their genetics. It's from the poisons that we have been given recently,
Right.
in the last few hundred years. There are children that won't live past 15. There's kids that are 20 years old that have never said a word in their life, that are still going to
Right.
stay in a mental state of 3 years old. So genetic entropy, I guess if I use a term, is a normalcy after the fall of man. Things are going to get worse. That's what we'd expect, and they're even getting much worse because the Satanists that rule us are poisoning us with every way they can. This is what is normal now, and it's hard for most people to understand. But when I grew up, my dad was a boxing fan, and as we know, most sports, especially boxing, are absolutely dominated by black people. They are absolutely stronger and tougher people sometimes. That is a reality. There are certain things that we can see. And then people say, well, watch out for those Asians. Oh man, they're smart, and watch out for those white people. They're good car salesmen. I don't know. There's always something weird about the way that we look at things. Like, yes, we are all human beings, period. There is no such thing as races. There is only one race. And this deception carries on, though, in 2017. People are fighting about it right now. You of course, got the KKK, and of course, the entire satanic agenda has been telling us that black people are inferior for hundreds of years now, since Darwinism, since Darwin, since Rasmussen, since you name it. Look how they treat people now. Still, and if you want to get into like the athleticisms and the societies, we have white people usually controlling black people in many different facets. When people pay to see the black people, there's probably a white promoter there. So that's just the way our corrupt world works. But they have been brainwashing this into our minds, and that's how you have a society that is on the brink of destruction. It is seriously. I think that it is equal, maybe, I don't know, to the sexism problem that we're still experiencing in 2017 with thinking that women are less capable of being as important, not necessarily capable of doing things, but not as important. I've noticed, which is absolutely not
Yeah.
true. And the reason I know is because the one time Jesus Christ made an exception in an argument was to a woman. It wasn't to a man. So sometimes the man has to bite his lip. So that's the reality of it. So, these are certainly parts of the deception, and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting you were saying about what tendencies groups of people have, and there's things called the Table of Nations, and people have tracked where people spread out from. They will trace them back to their origin spot, and gosh, they come from the Middle East. And one group, Noah had 3 sons. One group, the descendants of Ham, went south into Africa. Another group, the descendants of Shem, went east, the Semites. And another group, the sons of Japheth, went north. Those are the Caucasians, basically. Caucasian as a word is based upon the Caucasus Mountains. Those are the general, the people of the far north. Okay, and each one was known, because these are 3 different people that they came from, known for a particular trait. It seems that the descendants of Ham had the physical strength, like you said. The descendants of Shem were spiritual people, and the descendants of Japheth were known for their intellect and industry. And that's how it went. But these, of course, are just generalities. That doesn't mean there are no strong white people. It doesn't mean there are no smart black people. And doesn't mean there are no strong Semites or, any combination you want to do there. They're just generalities, and there are plenty of exceptions. And that's, the statement, the exception that proves the rule. Prove means test. It's like the proving grounds of something. And so what an exception does is test the rule to see if it stands. And if there's an exception found, if it's valid, it breaks the rule. So generalities don't mean anything. They really don't. And especially the more people mix, especially in the world today, there's a lot more mixing going on. Those generalities are going to disappear. And the same thing is true whether the genetics are skin color or other traits like that, or gender or anything else. And I'm not saying gender bend or anything like that. I'm just saying, we still can tell male from female, and there wouldn't be any such things as trannies and people wanting sex change operations if we still couldn't tell male from female. This is not evolution. This is just a biological reality that isn't going to change. People have always come in either pink or blue boxes as far as biology goes, and that's not going to change, but it still doesn't mean there's a superiority and no exceptions to intelligence and no exceptions to strength. There are strong women who are well over 6 feet tall who could beat up the 98-pound weakling man, and it's just, it means nothing as far as who's a leader, who's intelligent, who's strong, just general tendencies. And so without trying to further open that can of worms, it's all the same point, whether it's racism or sexism or anything else anybody wants to bring up. It's all the same thing as people wanting to divide and claim hierarchy on the basis of something that's purely arbitrary, has nothing to do with something they earned, but something they inherited and they were given. And that's the thing that's wrong with it all. And I don't care who it is that's feeling superior for whatever reason. It's the feeling of superiority that's the problem. So this whole, all the resurgence of racism and sexism is just devolution. As it goes, there was everybody remembers that group named Devo. That's what they were naming it after, devolution or entropy.
Oh, they had some nice hats, didn't they? Let's see. Here's the factor that I always put into it that no one takes into account. It is your environment. If these people, there's some people from Russia that are absolutely pasty pale, but man, they can snap a log in half. These are monsters. Mm-hmm. Some of these people. I mean, and what's interesting too is that they do have different genetic features as well. They are their own They are, you can say the word breeds. You know, I can use that word breed. They breed, and we have different genetics. So I think the only proper term you could say is breed, because they breed different. Because you know, when I have my children, you know, they're going to be loud and obnoxious, Paula. That's just the way it is. You know, and somebody else's children are going to be different. Well, these Russians grow up in a hard environment. The Ukrainian, Latvian, Lithuanian, you name it. I don't know how or why, but those guys are monsters. When I was in the military and we looked at our enemies, you know, I was never scared about anybody but the Russians, because they literally are the toughest army in the world. Period. End of story. They also have the most monstrous machines, the biggest machines. Wink, wink. And the fact of the matter is that that's because of their upbringing. And if a kid in America grows up in the hood, and by the time he's 6 years old, maybe if his mom can't afford to feed him, he has to go out and steal food, he might become a real tough son of a gun. You know, and that kid has you know, can't get enough food. You know, when you fast, it does things to your body. It pumps adrenaline through your system because you run out of energy. The adrenaline glands kick in, and that makes your body go into a whole new system of responses, and it adjusts because of the chemicals, and it often makes people very strong. So it is the environment, the upbringing, the things like that. If now you are already able to survive, this factor works. If you're not, Paula, guess what happens? You die. You already have to have the ability to survive, again, destroying the idea of evolution. The kid didn't evolve to steal a loaf of bread and run away because he doesn't have parents now, and he's a homeless kid at 8 or whatever. He already had that ability, because if he wasn't able to get strong enough and get the courage up to, you know, snag somebody's apple out of their hand like a squirrel and run away, he would die. So you know, it's the willpower that finds a way that can, I guess, manipulate your own upbringing. You will adapt while you're alive, not because you died and couldn't make it the first time, and that's why you're going to get it right the second time. So, of course, everything in reality annihilates evolution, and that's what happens in the inner city. When you grow up in hard times, you're going to be a tough kid no matter what color you are.
Right. I didn't mean to just exclude that part of it, nature versus nurture, but just to make a thorough point, make sure it's made that these genetic factors aren't really the most important factors. It's your spirit that determines whether you're going to keep getting up when you fall down and learn lessons or not. Some people don't learn any lessons. They just keep making the same mistakes over and over. Other people, they just have to see somebody else fall down and go, hey, I'm not going to do that, and be smart about it, you know, and not have to learn the lesson themselves. It's just everybody's different, but it's not fate, I think, is what we're both saying. Is it's a choice that you make. You're given certain things to start with. And some people start a lot farther ahead than other people in terms of environment, or even, you know, the genetics that they inherited plus a nurturing environment. That's a great advantage over somebody who had neither. But the fact in the end is that there are people who grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth. You know, they have servants, they have everything, they never have to struggle, and they turn out to be the worst criminals, serial killers, or whatever it is. You know, it's like, makes no sense for the people who just say it's just environment. I'm not saying you're saying that, but there have been people who said, well, you know, like the Marxism would say, it's just that there are poor people, therefore everything would be utopia if we just got everybody on the same level of misery. Of course, that doesn't work. But at the same token, there's people who are born in those tough environments you mentioned who turn out to be the most exemplary people. So it's all going to come down to choice and how you play the cards you're dealt, you know, and not whether you throw a tantrum because you didn't get the right cards, or somebody else's cards are red and yours are blue, or whatever it is. You know, it's still going to be your choice how to respond to what you are given, and whether it was genetics or environment. I don't know. I think that's as far as we can take that.
No, I agree. Absolutely. There's a billion factors involved here, but you nailed it right there. These people that don't have to work are the most worthless people. I used to have this thing on my MG42 Pillbox account that said landscaping, as if that was my job. I've never been paid for landscaping in my life. But I thought it would be just an interesting, I guess, joke at the time. And people started making fun of me, and they were calling me a Mexican and you landscape for a living. And I was like, Wow, what an interesting set of circumstances I've now been brought to because somebody thinks I work outside and I'm have my hands in the dirt and I'm doing yard work. Like now I'm inferior to you? No wonder it's all the same scumbags that spend their entire life lying because of their perverted religious psychopathic monkey beliefs. Like, wow, like it just the psychosis of this people who don't have to work, who don't know how to work, who can't dig a hole and plant a tree, which I got to be honest with, one of the greatest blessings that God can ever give you, besides the discipline of being able to do things, is being able to obviously work, but work in a garden. It's some of the most fun things I've ever done in my life. It's almost like you get into a trance, like you get in this zone, and it's absolute bliss while you're out there. And I've overdone it. I've been out in the sun too long a couple times in Phoenix, and you can overdo it. I've been known to do that. Not nobody should do that, but it is an absolute blessing to work outside and to do things, and it does make you stronger, and it does make you understand this creation better. That's like the most important thing I could ever recommend to anybody. As a teacher in the past, I've had to tell parents outside and throw them in mud, take them, put them upside down, and drop them into a mud hole if you want to help your kid. Okay, do something outside in the sun, whether it's making a mess or planting a garden. It's one of the greatest gifts that God has ever given us. And that's why I often get scared at the idea of not being able to work. Because I honestly think it's the greatest blessing we've ever been given, is that work idea. So these people that don't work, no wonder they're the most miserable, sick, twisted criminals you could ever imagine. Because they don't work.
Right.
They hate work. They look at it like it's the opposite. So that was a real telling thing. And these are, of course, atheists. Actually, I'll call them evolutionists. That's all I know they were. They were evolutionists, and of course, that was the big time game back in the day, Paula, as you know, evolution versus creation before it got overshadowed. And all these people were psychopaths, and no matter what, because my profile said landscaping, I was a dirty Mexican. I said, okay, not a great argument, thanks.
Mm-hmm. That's jumping the conclusions to the extreme. I mean, that we see that every day of the week where people are, just see you with someone else and assume you affirm and approve of everything that person does. I mean, even your best friends do stuff you don't approve of. It's not like you can control them. And that's one of the things, the impossible things that people demand of us Christians is they want us to all march lockstep like a hive mind. They don't like our divisions because that means there's something wrong with our faith. And yet at the same time, they think, oh, you march lockstep, you're a cult. You can't please them no matter what you do. If you unify, you're a cult. If you don't unify, your faith is false because you're all splintered. You can't please them.
Yeah, it just goes back to it's never about evidence. It's about your psychosis. And for the
Right.
record, I absolutely have been born and raised in a land that used to be known as Mexico, for the record. And those people that I've known all my life that are real Mexicans, that are hardworking, very poor people, are going to live a much happier life than the disgusting, elitist mentality that is the opposition. They are going to be much happier, much more successful people, period, end of story. And they won't have a dime to their name when they die.
Yeah, there is something to be said to have knowledge not beyond, but besides also working the land too, because you're going to need somebody who knows how to, say, repair things or repair people or, cheer people up, play music. These are all valid things that make human life more than just a drudgery to survive. And yet, and it's not always bad to specialize, but it's still important to keep attached to the ground for some reason, even if once a week, if it's not your major thing. I mean, I would prefer that somebody who's going to, say, set a broken bone is really good at it and spends all their time studying human anatomy because, I don't care if they're good in the garden if I need my bone set. You know what I'm saying? But that's why people need to be in groups, because we're all good at different things. And that yet at the same time, anything can be taken to an extreme where, I hear people want to go survival mode all the time. And yeah, it's going to be needed, but you can't do it alone very well for very long. You need a group of people with different skills one person's good at working metal or scrounging for metal and turning it into something useful, because, that would be a post-apocalyptic scenario, lots of trash laying around. Another person will be good at making things grow in harsh conditions, finding out which plants do what. Another person's going to be good at the construction of places that are safe to live in, And that's why we all need each other, and that's why Christians as a group are supposed to be a body with different parts that work together and don't all have the same function. That's straight out of a quote straight out of the Bible, is not all the parts have the same function. And that's so they can work together and do more than they could have each individually, because everybody, like it says, is not a hand. Everybody's not a foot or an eye. And there's a reason they're arranged the way they are so they can cooperate. And whether you're talking about a group of Christians or a group of conspiracy theorists or a group of anybody, any society, they need people with different skills, and they're going to need to cooperate. And that's the sticking point, because as we've all seen, cooperation is a dying skill. People can't get along because they're all into this me religion, which means they don't care what you believe. And not only don't they care, they're hostile if you do believe something they don't, even though they think everybody's truth is their own. You're certain truths you're not allowed to have. And because of that, people just, and all the suspicion, all the drama is because of suspicion. Oh, you made a typo on your website? Oh, well, you were hiding something and you slipped up. They just jump right to that conclusion because they have this need to be some kind of heresy hunter, vigilante going around trying to find a criminal under every rock. And when they themselves wind up being the criminals, the divisive people, the destroyers, because they don't care about the collateral damage. They don't care who they ruin, what innocent people they ruin in their quest to find the bad guys, and get to the bottom of this and expose the pyramid or whatever it is. They will step on any innocent people to get where, make a name for themselves as the one who discovered that so-and-so was really something else. And that's what's tearing people apart, whether it's a Christian community or a conspiracy community or just politically. People have this need to control what other people think and do. And if you step a toe out of line of the box that they drew for you, then you're, you have to be gotten rid of. And what I think, I didn't know what title to pick for this, just, I had some other ones I was going to use, but the end of the net, I think what I had in mind mostly was this kind of splintering that's going on in every social group you can think of. Social media has only accelerated it. It hasn't brought people together. It's brought some together, but only the people who can be brought together, which is people who are not as bent on controlling others, people who are not as concerned with trying to find out whether this other person is a shill or an agent or whatever it is. And that's what's the end of the net, is this total social chaos born about by suspicion and ill will toward other people, and assuming the worst about them all the time, and even people that somebody you've known for years, suddenly though somebody else comes along that they like and says, I think that other person is such and such, or they're using a voice changer or whatever it is, and your good friends of yours will just drop you like a hat, and just throw you right under the bus. And it's because, I don't know, people just like to be popular, and if they see a charismatic person come along, they want to be their friend, or they see someone who's quote unquote doing something, which really isn't doing anything, but it looks like they're doing something. We're going to get behind that person and follow them like the Pied Piper. And it's just, I don't know, it's herding cats, only it's worse than that. These are not just cats, they're rabid. And, the trick is to just try to find a few people who can get along and work on them. I don't know what to tell anybody to do about the end of the net.
Oh, well, it absolutely is the end of the internet. The Bible will end everything and absolutely restart a new heaven and earth. That is for sure guaranteed. But yeah, the whole drama thing, I mean, I can pretty much get along with anybody. I have an extremely high tolerance. But of course, I have to, as far as what they're going to do in their own house, that's fine. I don't care, really, to an extent. But when you start calling, when the transvestite claim even comes in, and all these other claims and this crazy, well, you're not even now you've already gone from producer now to destroyer. You were producing, and that's why some not everybody's going to agree with me. Of course, actually nobody should, but Patricia Steer doesn't try to really. I don't remember Patricia Steer attacking anybody. So let's say she's, I don't know, not perfect. I think that could be okay, acceptable. I know I'm not either. But the fact of the matter is that we will know them by their fruit. So I need a reason. If you're telling me to hate somebody, I really can't do it, first of all, because I really can't, unless you really do something to me bad. It does take a little bit. And we all know who the real sick criminals around here are. But this person doesn't attack anybody. So I'm sorry, but I mean, you guys are just making yourself look stupid. Not that everything you're saying is wrong, but it's like in the Bible. It's like, do we have to tell God who the shills are in the Bible? Do you think God knows what he's doing? Do you think Mark Sargent is going to hurt your life and ruin it for your kids, and all of a sudden your milk goes bad? And now your car won't start, and now you can't get to work? And what is the worst thing these people are going to do to you? How is they going to affect? Do you think, and especially as Christians, if you're a Bible believer, ain't nothing gonna change anything that God wants. God's plan is going to happen, and in fact, when people try to stop God's plan, it will make it probably happen even faster. And that's how God works, because God loves irony, and he does have a sense of humor. So what are you worried about? If you're the only truthers in the world are Christians, I'm sorry. If you're a real truther who understands the Bible, you understand a very young earth, quote unquote. It's a flat one to begin with. Flat young earth, Jesus Christ is here, the worldwide flood, the essentials. What are you worried about? You already got it all figured out, and you're scared that somebody on the internet is going to hurt you or destroy the world? Oh my gosh, Mark Sargent's going to destroy the flat earth. I really don't think he's going to do anything. I'm sorry. And if you know God, nothing's going to stop God, people. So we really need to relax and sit back and worry about what we can produce. And instead of worrying about hating and calling people out, trust me, the truth is going to come out no matter what. And anybody who wants the truth will find it. Patricia Steer and Mark Sargent are not the reason I hear other people not claiming that they lie about the Bible. I haven't heard them lie about it, but a lot of people lie about my Bible. And they're flat earthers and they're liars. Well, Patricia Steer and Mark Sargent didn't tell those people to lie about the Bible. It's not, right. That's not their fault. So why don't we worry about the people lying about my Bible on a regular basis and telling me that Jesus is actually just a symbolic rendition of our physical light source known as the sun? I'm sorry, the Bible specifically says not to worship the creation. So it takes just a little hooked on phonics. If you know how to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and if you know how to read, there's no excuse for that type of crime. And I'm sorry, you're committing a crime. When you're lying about God's word, that's a crime, and you're in big trouble. You're not going to hurt me. You're just exposing yourself, and I am going to call you out on it when somebody brings that up. I'm not going to go make a hit piece video about it. No, I'll tell you that right now. I'm not going to waste my time putting someone's name out there that's lying about truth. Guess what? Whoever wants to know the truth, Paula, and you know this, and who's ever going to be honest enough, because it takes, guess what? Discipline and willpower and honesty to know the truth. Ain't nothing going to stop that person from finding it. Nobody. Period. End of story.
Exactly. And one of the things, as you were talking, that I wanted to bring up that others have said before is that here we have a situation, the great hypocrisy of people saying, oh, it's cool, you shouldn't be, against this tranny person. That, we're all very accepting. This is a nice tranny person. But Patricia Steer might be a tranny, therefore bad. It's like, wait. So the same people are saying that it's bad if she's a tranny, but it's really good if this other person's a tranny. And they're all over the map because they don't have any standards. And the people who point fingers the most are often the ones, if you followed them around the way they follow Patricia and Mark around, I'm pretty sure you could make like 500 hit pieces on them because, this is that fake moral superiority, moral high ground that people have. They put the attention on people who really are fairly harmless, because otherwise they'd be looking at them, the ones pointing the fingers. But this is not to say we can't be fooled. Maybe they are agents. I don't care. then that's the thing, is this what I call my simple rules of engagement anymore. Look, it's real simple, like you said about fruit. Who is doing me harm? Who has done a hit piece on me or my friends? Who is trashing, burning the Bible? Who is deciding, attacking Jesus? Who is singling out our faith for extraction from the conspiracy realm? Who is actually trying to divide the community with all their suspicions and going around saying, I'm going to expose such and such? Those are the people doing actual harm. If Mark and Patricia wanted to have a social good time and have meetups, is this hurting? Like you said, is this hurting somebody? I don't even care anymore who's the ringleader of what. All I care is who hit the ground running by trashing the Bible and Christianity, who hit the ground, which is divisive in itself, because they're trying to exclude a large portion of the conspiracy community, especially the flat earth community, because they got to get rid of the Christians. And that's the thing I've seen from from years ago, is it's ABC, anything but Christianity. They have this door opening that is open, not like nothing I've ever seen. Any of us who've done the creation evolution debate know that this issue has opened the door to people believing in a creator like nothing else ever has. And what's the Christian community doing? They're like chameleons. They blend in and they say, oh, no, I can't spread my Christianity. That would be offensive. Well, these other people are running around offending Christians and nobody bats an eye. And here we are, like, and I get called out for standing up. You get called out for standing up. And people say, well, you're the bad Christians because you're making a stink about it. We should be able to trash your faith up one side and down the other, and you should remain silent and just smile and take it like a punching bag. And so the other Christians leave us there. It's like a situation I've brought out from the Bible before in the Old Testament, where everybody knows King David and Bathsheba. Well, they don't know who Bathsheba's husband was. It was Uriah the Hittite, who was one of some really extreme warriors in Israel's army. And so David his wife got Bathsheba pregnant, and so he tried to cover it up. He took Uriah home from the war front and said, oh, you're a really great guy. How's the war going? Oh, why don't you go home with your wife for a few days, so he could cover up and pretend that he got her pregnant. Well, that didn't work, because he was an upstanding guy and said, no, I can't leave, my fellow soldiers at the war while I have a good time. I'm going to, sleep with the soldiers and then go back. And so David sent word to the other officers, when he gets back there, leave him by the wall by himself go up to the wall where the heavy fighting is of the city. And then the rest of you withdraw and leave him there and he'll be killed. And that's what happened. And that's what Christians are doing to the few who stand up. They leave us at the wall to take all the arrows and then tell us, yeah, you got killed. You were bad. God is punishing you. You're making waves and you're rocking the boat and you're keeping us from being unified, when in fact, they're all just cowards and traitors who are not standing up for Jesus. I don't care if they stand up for me. The problem is that they're not standing up for their own Savior, the Father who adopted them. They don't care if the name is trashed. And that's why I have a problem with those who are not standing up. It's not those of us who do who are the bad Christians, even though I took that name with tongue in cheek for a while, because it's like, you know what? There's nothing I can do to please anybody, Christian or non-Christian or like. They're all going to call me a bad Christian. It doesn't matter how high I raise the bar. It doesn't matter how much I guard my speech. I've not done hit pieces in return, just like you haven't. Because as the Bible says, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Don't take vengeance into your own hands, which I could easily have done multiple times. But what would that have gained me? Just more enemies and giving more fodder to the enemy to throw back at me. If you shoot arrows at them, they'll pick them up and shoot them back. So I could have, but at the same time, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians 5, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are we not to judge those inside? And the answer, of course, is yes.
1,000, that was it, right? You just hit the nail on the head right there, 1,000%. I was just going to get into that, yes.
Yeah, we are supposed to judge, and we're supposed to start with our own people. And we should not expect non-Christians to act like Christians. They're going to do what they do. They're going to believe silly things that I think are silly, and they think what I think is silly, what I believe. So what? That's only fair. But within the body of Christ, I'm going to call you out every time. If you're standing idly by while somebody drags your Savior's name through the mud, burns the Bible in front of you, or urinates on it or whatever, we don't know that incident. It's like, how can any Christian just stand there and let that go and act like nothing happened, and then watch their fellow believers get beaten by a gang, and do nothing and say nothing and go, well, you got beat up. I think I'll just shoot the wounded here and push you off the curb, because you were making trouble, and I don't want trouble. I want to be friends with these people who beat you up. That's the sorry state of Christianity, and that's the problem, because we have this golden opportunity drop right into our lap, this flat earth thing, where we have the door open to people believing in a creator. We have this opportunity to show them who the creator is. We don't take it. It's just like what, we don't, like, nobody read the New Testament where Paul went to Mars Hill where the Greek philosophers were and said, hey, I noticed you got a whole bunch of shrines here. There's one that says to the unknown God, let me tell you about him. And we're not doing that. We're just saying, oh, you believe that God is a mushroom. That's great. Bless you, brother. I'm sorry, but God is not a mushroom. He made the mushroom. And that's the important thing we have to remember is it's not the shape, it's who made it. That's got to be our primary focus, is who made it, not how they made it or what they made. And beyond that, it's respect for the Bible.
There's a reason why God says there is no searching. You can't even search for God's understanding. That's what everybody talks about. Well, tell me what's underneath the flat earth. Okay, just go back inside. It's okay. It's fine. I don't need to talk to you about this topic anymore. But yeah, that incident you just mentioned, somebody pretending to do a bodily function on my Bible, and I go, wait a minute. Of course, I pulled my red flag out, and a so-called Christian attacks me for it. And of course, he went straight demonic possession on me. And that's who, as we are Christians, I'm talking to you Christians right now, as our responsibility, we got to clean up our own house first. That's where the issue is right now. You got these so-called Christian peoples right now making videos every day about who shills are and about this and that. And the same people are allowing porn bombers. And that's the best way I can describe them. I'm not going to go into any more detail about it. I had my rants at Poncho's a couple nights ago about these incidents, which is fine. Guess what? I feel sorry for these people that have done that. But if you're calling yourself a Christian, you're attacking these flat earthers, but you're allowing porn bombers on your hangout, sorry, you just exposed yourself. You're the shill. And as Christians, I'm going to expose those people who are called, because you're destroying the name Christian. No wonder people don't want to become Christians when so many people call themselves Christians and they act like disgusting idiots constantly. Well, no wonder. I remember preaching to a guy at a store a few months ago. I go, what comes to your mind when you think Christian? He said Catholic Church. I go, phew, man, oh my good dear Lord, that hurts. That's why we call the Catholic Church out. That's why Jesus Christ said, many will come in my name. Guess who the worst criminals in the world are? Fake Christians. These are the most, even the atheists will admit that the Catholics are the epitome of disgusting criminals in some ways. As far as the hierarchy is, they're absolutely right. And there are a lot of good people that call themselves Catholics. There's a lot of good Mormons. There's a lot of good people from many different places, but there's only one truth. And I'm sorry, that's the reality about this. But if you're going to call yourself a Christian, you better walk the walk, not just pretend to talk the talk. And that's the biggest problem we have in this world right now. That's why people go, no, I'm not going to call myself Christian. There's Christians I know that won't call themselves Christian because of so-called Christians that have destroyed Christ's name. That is the biggest problem in the world. Not the people having their get-togethers and saying, we don't really know, so we're just going to talk about it for 3 hours. That's fine, because you're right, you don't know. Nobody knows except for Bible-believing Christians. That's the really hurtful reality that is going to, if I want to insult everybody, people, all you got to do is tell them there's only one truth. It's Jesus Christ. If you want to make people mad, and sometimes that's really fun, and we all love to, prove our point. If that's your thing, all you got to do is do what Jesus said. And there's a reason they hated him first. They're going to hate you too.
Exactly.
Trust me. We have to clean up these fake Christians, and they're disgusting. They're not Christians. I'm sorry. A lot of these people are not Christians calling themselves Christians. If you allow porn bombers on your hangout, I'm sorry, you're not a Christian. Period. Thanks for playing.
No, that's the thing, is a observation I don't think anybody could disagree with, is that human beings have this unique ability to trip merrily through life believing things that are contradictory. They will, it doesn't have to just be Christianity or any religion at all. It can be any political thing, whatever it is. They will go through life believing things that can't both be true, and they don't want to think about it even. At worst, I guess you could say or at best you could say they're just lazy and don't want to deal with it. But there is this accountability that people need to be aware of. Eventually there will be a judgment day, and the Bible in 1 Corinthians 3, chapter 3, where Paul likens it to having a building set on fire to test what it's made of. And if you made it out of some gems and things like that, you will get great reward. This is not to see if you're saved or not. It's to see what you did with your life. And if you made it out of straw and wood, well, your house will be burned to the ground, but you yourself will be saved. So that's how I know it's not about salvation. It says so right there. But it's talking about works or the lack of them, and that they will be tested. And people who don't care, or like Jesus said in one of the letters to the churches in Revelation in the 2nd and 3rd chapters, where he says one of the churches was lukewarm. They were fence straddlers. They didn't want to be any extreme. They didn't want to rock the boat. And he said, you're like lukewarm water that I just want to vomit out of my mouth, because I wish you were either really hot or really cold, but nobody wants room temperature water. I mean, I personally like to drink it, but that's beside the point. That Jesus wished that people would the Christians would either be really bad or really good. He didn't want fence straddlers. He didn't want blasé people, Christians following him, who could just be pushed around like a rag doll. They did, just chameleons who blend in with the crowd wherever they're going. And he just hates that. He said, I'd rather you were really bad at it than to just, be tossed around by the waves of the sea, is another expression the Bible uses. And not caring, so, to say all that is to say not caring is a really bad thing. And Christians should either be just really weak and falling back into sin all the time, or at least trying, or walking the walk, showing the fruit, by continually disciplining themselves and studying the Bible to know what God wants from them. And then they will be able to stand up. And that's the reason I think a lot of Christians are afraid to stand up, is because they can't. It's like going to battle with just your socks on, There's a reason there's spiritual armor, and you have to put all of it on, and you don't go out with, nothing but your shoes on, or just a helmet and no body armor. It's like, you got to have everything together before you start to stand up. And I think that's at least some people's reason, is just either A, they're unprepared, and why aren't they? That's a problem. Or B, they're cowards. You can't, this is not for the weak of heart. Jesus said, you will have persecution if you follow me. And don't look back once you put your hand to the plow, using the common analogies of the agrarian society of the time. If you put your hand to the plow, don't look back. You aren't going to go a straight row with it if you're, you're looking back all the time to see if anybody's going with you. It's a lonely job. It's just the nature of it. And Jesus said, I did not come to unite people. I came to divide them right down the middle between families, even if I have to, because that's what truth does. It divides people. It separates people, not because truth is bad, but because people react to it in one of two ways: either accept it or they don't. And so, like I was saying, though, it's you have to talk to each individual person, but I'm speaking in generalities. I think a lot of people are afraid because they're unprepared, and they're unprepared because they've been relying on teachers to teach them, and the teachers haven't been not only not teaching them, but teaching them stupidity half the time. And the Bible is not a book you can just pick up. I know people don't like to hear that either. It sounds elitist, but let's face it, it's from another language, from another time, from another culture. And you need a lot of context that isn't provided in the text itself to help you understand what's going on there, because it makes a huge difference. And these people who critique the Bible are all bent upon tearing it apart. Well, why aren't Christians bent upon putting it back together? It just makes no sense to me. And I realize, as I just said earlier about parts of the body, we all have different things to do and different levels of, not levels and hierarchy, but different stages of growth, because everybody's supposed to grow when after you're born, that's the beginning, not the end. We can't expect everybody to be on the same page. We can't expect everybody to stand up. But I would think in a community this size that there'd be more than two of us, more than four. There might be a half a dozen or a dozen or so Christians I've seen stand up out of, I don't know how many hundreds. I mean, supposedly the critics complain that there's too many Christians in flat earth. Well, where are they? I haven't seen them. They in name only, I guess. I don't know, but why are there so few? And the onus, I think, is partly at least on those who do study to spread it out, even if we're not perfect, which we're not. But then the other half of it is on the part of the listeners who know they don't know, and they need to go looking for help in understanding, or at least other people to bounce ideas off of, because that's, again, the body thing. We're supposed to work together because we're not all on the same page. Well, we're not doing that because we're too busy tearing each other down on the basis of genetic issues, trying to separate people again, and clear violation of the scripture like Galatians 3:28 that says in Christ there is no Jew or Greek, no slave or free, no male or female. You are all one in Christ Jesus. It says that in that one sentence. We're not acting like one. We're going, well, I've got this skin color, or I've got this plumbing, I've got this, whatever it is that makes us have to separate. That's the teaching of division in the Bible is very much against that. We're supposed to unify, and if we did, then we would have more Christians standing up. In my opinion, of course.
Well said to that, yeah. And that's why we're obligated. You're calling yourself a Christian, then we got to get right with our own people. We have to fix our in-house issues. We have to clean house. Don't even think about looking at what other people are doing. I mean, of course, when somebody says something about the Bible, that's fine. I certainly am going to say, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. That's fine. But let's not be scared or paranoid or frightened that someone's going to hurt us. Even the fake Christians can't hurt us, but that's where we're pretty much obligated to condemn such heresy, such psychoticness if they're Christian. I mean, it's that simple. So for these other people that might be shills or whatever, it just doesn't matter. We have to fix our own problems first, and we have to come together as Christians so that other people that are not Christians can go, oh, they're the only people that do come together. They're the only people that have a foundation of truth. They're the only people that have been right because they're the original flat earthers. Guys, we've been ridiculed for these things for how long? And now we finally realized the Bible is true 100%. And half the world is on the internet, of course, which isn't the most important demographic in the world. Let's admit, everybody, we are in the cesspool of the world. This is where everybody meets up that already has it either figured out, or people really do know the truth and want to tell other people about it. So it's not going to end until the day we die. This battle isn't going to be over. Our job is to stand fast and to hold tight and to be shoulder to shoulder and to form a phalanx and to hold your shield tightly and to firmly put your end of your spear into the ground and don't move until the battle's over. And that's the reality of this. I know it's going to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, there'd be no point to this. I mean, even a video game designer knows that when you put a game into your Nintendo, does it just come on and say push button A? Bink, you win. No, that's not the point. There has to be an obstacle. Mario has to, kick his tortoise ducks down the lane, and Sonic has to collect coins, and sometimes he loses them all. Well, that sometimes is a real, when you were 8 years old playing your Sega Genesis, that was actually there might have been a point to that. There has to be a point to this. There has to be an obstacle. God knew everything before we did. He knew Adam and Eve were going to fall. Adam and Eve didn't even know they already knew everything, which is kind of weird. And, it was only going to work one way. God knew it was going to happen this way. That's why he set it up so that entropy would commence and there would be a 7,000-year-old battle that would continue to the end. And whoever ends up understanding that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior goes to the gates of heaven. And it's that simple. That is it. Because trust me, there are millions of Christians that are stupid and that think they're on a magical ball. Their minds have been destroyed. But they're still going to get to the kingdom of heaven. There's still a way to Christ, the truth, if you know that he is real, absolutely. But right now, the whole point of this battlefield going right now, we finally know what the battlefield looks like. Isn't that a nice advantage? I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
This is pretty amazing. I mean, not only we didn't even know what we were standing on, we didn't even know what we were underneath. Wow, now we know not only are we on a stationary flat plane of existence, heaven is right above with our Creator looking down, as Jesus Christ said, heaven is his throne of our Father, and the earth is his footstool. Man, isn't it nice to know that's true? And that everybody who made fun of us for all those decades and centuries, they were the kook, they were the liar, they were the ones deceived. Today they're deceived by cartoons given to them by their government. What do you have to worry about? You just figured out the greatest deception in God knows how long. This is one of the greatest deceptions in history. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm not letting anybody take my flat earth. This is Jesus Christ's flat earth. And people, I'm sorry, this is going to insult some people. You can't even really be a flat earther unless you're a Bible believer, because that's the only true foundation of truth that ever existed. So how could you know something's true unless you understand the Bible? There is no other truth. God made it very clear. Job chapter 38, 4, 5, and 6, he stretched a line over the foundations. Well, try stretching a line over a ball or inside of a cell. Good luck. We are finally, literally free. Psychologically, we're free now. And not even every Christian's going to understand this. Not everybody who's even saved is going to know this. So if you're a Christian right now, in these times right now, this is why the people of yore, for lack of a better term, we're going to be so jealous of this time right now during this battle, because it was going to be a very small group of people that were going to wake up to the absolute truth of the Bible being true in every way. Not, and again, many are called, many are called, right? Few are chosen. Yeah, a lot of people are called. They're not all going to get it. Doesn't mean they're all condemned, though, either. They're not going to condemn. Even if you think you come out of a monkey, I think God might even have a spot for you. There might, if you're really stupid still, that's fine. God's not going to send you to hell because you were that gullible and stupid, as long as you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. And that's the bottom line about this. But for us that know that Jesus Christ is not only our Savior, that he gave us all this knowledge, there is no greater gift. There is no greater gift in 7,000 years. The only thing that I can compare it to is maybe the way that Adam and Eve got to walk with God, at the beginning. Maybe I guess that's probably the most amazing thing in history, because we can't even understand how things were 500 years ago. Nowadays, people don't even think 500 years ago existed. So 6,500 years ago was probably pretty amazing. I got to be honest. I bet 4,500 years ago, when there was, again, one boat, one family, one truth for a reason, I bet that were some special times. And by the way, there were dragons on the ark. I love to say it. I'm sorry.
Right. That's just the thing, is that Christians have to understand is not only about not being ashamed, because I was kind of watching the chat too. I can't really comment in the chat very well because I have to refresh the screen every time I want to say something. I'm using an older browser tonight for this, so I could log in under the other account. But Jesus said that whoever is ashamed of him, he will be ashamed of them when he comes. And it doesn't mean that everybody is to go out on the front lines. And even in an army, there's people who are in the infantry, there's people who do supplies, there's people who make maps, there's people who cook, there's people who go out and attend to the wounded. Everybody has something to do, but none of them should be ashamed that whose side they're on. And that's the thing, is not being ashamed. It doesn't mean everybody has to be this superb apologist that knows everything about everything, like nobody does anyway, but, debating science or whatever it is. It just means that if somebody asks you, and the Bible says, always be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have, not just your personal testimony, but an answer for why you believe what you do. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. I mean, for me, it's just, look, I've never heard any stories about origins or explaining our reality or human behavior, anything else that tops what the Bible has. This, I've read them. I've read the Quran. I've read the Book of Mormon. I've studied all, the various religions, not all of them, a lot of them, all the major ones. And I'm just telling you, this one makes the most sense to me, and you have to accept that because you got nothing better. I've never heard a better, more sensible, more Occam's razor account of our reality than the Bible has. And here again, it goes back to the flood stories. We have all these origin stories and all sorts of other stories, and they're still just stories, but again, copies imply an original. And there was one original truth. And if you believe in objectivity at all, I believe that truth is something outside of ourselves, not something inside. Or here again, it's that very narrow-minded religion of solipsism where the world revolves around you, which is not going to bring unity at all. And that's what we're seeing the fruit of. We're seeing people with that kind of a religious view of anything goes being unable to decide anything because they're just drifting on the water with no rudder and no sail and wondering why they're not getting anywhere and then getting all offended at somebody who has a rudder and a sail. It's just ridiculous. But the thing is, the Bible's account has been more studied, more attacked, more scrutinized, and held to the most impossible standards than any other religious book in the world, and it's still standing. And people will try to debunk, it's like you were saying about not believing we've even been here 500 years. That only extends to the point where they have to prove that the Bible's false because it borrowed from something even older. That thing was true. If it's 1,000 years old, it's true. But the Bible, maybe is 800 years old, and that can't be true because it's 800 years ago. It's just the most bizarre hypocrisy and double standards and total nonsense. You can't, this is why I don't even bother anymore with, first thing I want to find out if somebody even cares what logic and reason are, or cares what eyewitness testimony means, and cares what a credible witness is, because that's what I was doing when I did the book studies. I just finished up with the Gospels, and the first episode of that was the account of Simon Greenleaf, who was one of the principal founders of the Harvard School of Law back in the 1800s. Around then, and he was challenged to apply his legal methods to the four evangelists, the four gospel writers, to see if they were credible. And he did a thorough legal examination, expecting to find them guilty of lying or collusion or just a fairy tale. And being a rational person and truly open-minded person, he just went with the evidence and said, look, if these guys were not credible witnesses, then nobody is. It's pretty much his conclusion. And he became a Christian as a result. So I think that's compelling, and he's not the only person of any study and hostility to the Bible who's done this, one of the few open-minded ones. But these open-minded people almost always come away with it going, yeah, this is at least as good as anything else. And I'm going to believe them before I'm going to believe some random troll on YouTube who's telling me, no, Thor is the real God, and no, there's really candy canes at the North Pole, no, it's space aliens. I'm sorry, but I find even evolution a laughable fairy tale because it's all magic. Nothing exploded and resulted in order, and you just have to believe it because we have math, therefore it isn't belief. That's ridiculous. It's disingenuous, and I'm just tired of talking to people who don't even care about logic and reason and evidence and real science. I'm just not going to waste my time.
Well, wait a minute now. Let's get this right, though. It wasn't nothing that exploded. It was virgin nothing. My favorite type of nothing. So, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Then the virgin rocks gave the first life form. So I love that story. It's a great bedtime story. So, we're in amazing times. We are in such amazing times right now. We need to take advantage of it. Okay. You got to realize, once you've gotten to this point, I hate to say this, and this is where even a lot of Christians are going to call me crazy, but you've reached, if you can stay strong, if you can trust Jesus Christ, it kind of is an invincibility because it doesn't matter. What are they going to do? Kill you? Okay, well, then they killed you. Your body's gone. Guess what? That doesn't matter anymore. Are they going to kill me? Oh, darn, I get to leave the satanic world of satanic ritualism and drinking baby blood. Oh, darn, I get to leave here and go away. That's not going to be, that might sound scary at first. It's really not that bad. And so the reality is that we have jobs to do. We're supposed to do our jobs and not look back, right? What happens when they left Sodom and Gomorrah? Don't look back. Don't look back.
Right.
What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? Well, you actually get hit in it right between the eyes with a piece of fire and brimstone. Well, like, okay, I guess what's the worst that can happen? So don't look back, guys. This world is absolutely, like Rand Campbell says, a satanic ritual. Every single part of any business owner that like makes more than $90,000 usually gets right into Satanism. Like, I mean, this whole world is money corrupts, and the more money you get, it corrupts you even more. And that goes back to these people that don't have to work in their lives and have never worked. And I actually think that work is a blessing. So I look at it differently now. And maybe that's what people need to do, is start looking at things a little bit different. Like, don't you think it's actually a gift that you can put your hand on a stove and it burns? That might actually be a good thing. And that's how life works. If you didn't feel the pain, you'd leave your hand there, and before you know it, your entire body's engulfed, and now you've spontaneously combusted. So I've heard. So, it could be a lot worse. If you didn't feel pain, how could you learn? I mean, I've had some hard lessons, Paula. I don't have time to get into them, but man, watching your father die in front of you for 10 years straight isn't what I wish upon anybody. But I got to be honest with you, and here's where people think I'm crazy. I'm almost glad it happened, because without that experience, how was God going to shake me into the reality of his truth? Maybe I'd still be a monkey on a ball had these things not happened to me. So I have to thank God for the privilege of experiencing anything in this plane of existence. And I think that's what people don't realize, that you've gone through hard times. Guess what? Some of them turned out to be for a reason. Sometimes you gotta learn things the hard way, because guess what? Those are the lessons that you're never gonna forget. That's the way. It's not. I can't describe it to a T. I can barely make sense of it myself. But we have to be more thankful for what God has given us. We have to stop asking. We have to start saying thank you. In our prayers. Right. Thank you, God. Thank you, dear Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for getting rid of my family. What? Well, thank you, God, for pushing all these evil people out of my life. Okay, that makes more sense now. You see what I'm saying? So at first it seems really bad that maybe my family is gone. My 99, I don't know. I don't even think I have a single blood relative that I know in my life right now. And that's actually a good thing, because they were criminals. I come from a criminal family, and that's the reality of it. They're all chimps on a ball, and they'll slit your throat for 25 cents. Guess what? I don't need those people in my life. It's more important for me to be a part of maybe your guys' family, maybe Victoria's, maybe Kathleen's and Paula's and Rand's, because guess what? You guys aren't perverted criminals. I don't care if I lost my family. There are other families out there that deserve fellowship, that deserve time being with, that can understand things in a sense that can be productive. I don't care that they're my blood, that they're related to me. What difference does that make? I don't want to waste my time with criminals. I want to spend my life with people that aren't afraid of the truth and aren't going to try to kill me. Even if I do die, it doesn't matter, but I'm not going to hang around people that are going to try to kill me. Not necessarily is it going to be the worst thing in the world that happens, but let's use our common sense here. If I have a job to do, I'm going to try to do it. I don't care, even if it was my own mother. The other day, Patricia was saying how there was a young lady who asked her to take down a video because it was affecting her too much. And guess what? She was getting hurt because of it. It was actually hurting her. Actually, I'm going to mute you real quick just for the feedback. Let me see if I can you mute real quick?
Sure. Hold on a second. Let me get.
I'm trying to. I can't do it on this. That work? Okay. And Patricia was telling the story about this nice. Go ahead.
Sorry, my browser froze up. Let me try to mute now.
Okay, no problem. And there was this nice young lady that Patricia Steer had on her show, and she's a flat earther, and she woke up to this, but I guess she received a lot of flack for it. Guess what? She called Patricia and said, take that video down. She's not ready to have her life change. She's probably a great person. I certainly would, I'm not going to say that I'm any better. She's probably a much better person than I've ever been. She seemed like a very wonderful person. But the fact that some of you people are ready, that don't care if you lose your family or friends, that means that you're not scared of anything. Nothing can hurt you. You've made it. And there are other people out there that just are not ready for this truth because it hurts them too much. Well, I've learned in life that sometimes I need the pain to be more alive. And guess what? Those are some of the greatest blessings I've ever had. I was pushed away from my family. I was pushed away from a corporate society. I was pushed away from large amounts of money. I used to have all those. Guess what? I was dying. I was dead inside. So thank God he got rid of that life of mine. Thank God he gave me a new life in his flat creation, this flat plane of existence with this beautiful nature that I get to appreciate now, including the birds and the bees and the worthless insects that everybody thinks are garbage. I think they're wonderful. I think they're beautiful. And that's just the way I look at creation now. So, I mean, if something is going to push people out of your life because it's good for you, then they're not good for you. Doesn't that make sense? And that's how easy it is. These problems are going to solve themselves, guys. I know it's going to hurt, but you're going to have to squeeze that shield a little tighter. You're going to have to hold on to that spear a little longer. I know it hurts. I've been there. But trust in Jesus Christ, and you will be very thankful in the end, because there's nothing better than being with God.
Can you hear me? Am I echoing or anything?
No, you sound okay, I think.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's the thing is there's a lot of us running around, especially you and Rand, a lot of other people who are wounded warriors, so to speak. And we don't get any slack. Christians don't get any slack cut to them. There's other people who stub their toe and everybody's like, oh, can I send you money? And listen, overlook how they hate the Bible, and just, because they've been hurt and by Christians and whatnot, and they grew up in the Jesuits and they hurt them. And so we got to cut them a lot of slack and overlook, just turn the other way when they're doing bad things about the Bible. And I'm like, no, look, we don't get any of that cut for us. We get held to most impossible standards, and nobody cares what's going on in your life or anything like that. They just want to bash you and judge you just because you're a Christian, like they're taking out whatever some other person did to them. I don't know, but it's that double standard again. And they have to understand we're all just human too, and we're not perfect Christians any more than they're perfect non-Christians. They don't even live by their own standards. But they want to call us out for not living to ours and tell us what our standards are and then bash us for not making them. But the point is, I think from what you were saying, I mean, I think that you could find, tragic backstories on so many people that we don't even know about who put on a good front and don't let anything show. And yet, once in a while, there's some area that they have trouble with. Whatever it is, the point being that people need to cut each other slack. And I think it's high time for Christians to start saying, look, you know what, you're doing harm that you don't know you're doing. And if you even just treated us the way you want us to treat you, this would be a lot better. There would be a lot less of this accusation and tearing apart going on. But it's never going to happen. We have to understand that as Christians too. We already know that. And as far as when bad things happen, there was a book a long time ago, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, where by some rabbi, Kushner, I think was his name, that wrote a book because his son died of progeria, which is an early, aging, accelerated aging. They look like old people when they're young, and they die very early. And he was trying to wrestle with this spiritually, and finally decided that either God was unwilling, which means he was bad, as this is the atheist argument too, or he was unable, which means he isn't really God. And he chose the latter because he could deal with that more than the former. And the truth is, and I think, what was his name? Geisler, I can't remember his first name anymore, Norman Geisler. He logically tore that argument apart. And basically it is that just because justice isn't to be had in this life doesn't mean it will never be had. And that's the key error that the atheists make as well, where they don't see justice happening now. And they do one of these double standards again, where they say, well, why doesn't God make sure nothing bad happens? Why isn't he micromanaging human race so we don't do bad things to each other? And then they turn around and say, why doesn't God leave me alone? Why? I don't want to be a puppet. Shame on God for operating me like a puppet. You can't please them. It doesn't matter what God does. Everybody else is causing the problems. It's either Satan or people, but God gets the blame. That's the atheist mindset. And even if they can't remain atheists anymore because of flat earth or evolution creation, whatever it might be, they still want to blame God for everything bad that happens. And God wasn't there when he needed them. And as I was just reading when I did the book of Acts, not that long ago, where Paul was in prison, shackled between two soldiers, and there was a whole contingent of soldiers all around. And what's he doing? Is he blaming God, saying, how can you let this happen to me? I was beaten without a trial. I was whipped, and vilified in public and humiliated. And, they should have been whining and shaking their fists at God and saying, I'm not going to believe in you anymore. But no, they were singing and praising God in the prison to be counted worthy of suffering for being a Christian. And unbelievers aren't going to understand that. They don't understand what you just did, and saying, thank God for these things. It doesn't mean God wanted those things to happen or he needed them to happen, but that since they're going to happen because of people and Satan, he's going to make something good come of it for his people. Eventually, it might not be in this life, but something good will come of it. And that's why he says all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Who is called? Those who love God. So if you choose to follow him, if you accept the offer of redemption and adoption as his child, there are certain things that he's not going to do yet because we're still in Satan's kingdom, but that he will eventually come back. And in the meantime, even if we have to give up our life, like Jesus said, what good does it do to gain the whole world but lose your soul, which is really happening in flat earth where all these other theories, and people are astrotheology and other things that they're losing their soul in an effort to gain the world. And in a sense we never thought of before. But the point being that the bad things are going to happen here. It isn't God's fault. It's everybody but God's fault. But he will make something out of it if we let him. And that's the hard part, is to let him and to maintain our gratitude like you do in spite of all those things and like a lot of other people do, and not be a fair weather friend to God, because that's what people want us to do. Other believers want us to do. Job's wife wanted to do. She said, curse God and die. That's pretty much what a lot of Christians say too. And a lot of non-Christians, they'll say, curse God and die because bad stuff happened to you. Therefore God is bad. And truth, if people were honest, people who say they don't believe in God, the truth is that they're obsessed with God and they hate him thoroughly, and they believe in God, they just hate him. And so it isn't that they don't believe there is a creator, it's that they hate the one who is, and they want to believe in anyone else, anything else with the God of the Bible, because of people who slander and twist the Bible, they believe he's bad, and they get all sorts of ridiculous ideas about it, and they don't study it. And my thing to do, we each have different things to do. My thing to do is to try to do those studies and put them out there, and if anybody wants to check into it, they can. There's no excuses other than I have the most unpopular channel in the world, but I did what I could. That's all I can say, is I threw the seed out there. Whether it takes root or not is not up to me. It's not my problem, and I will do it regardless because that's what I'm called to do. But every one of us has something different to do, and I hope was trying to read the chat again a little bit ago where people are saying I can't do that frontline work, and we're not supposed to all do the same thing. But what I am saying is, if a Christian is a Christian and are standing there when somebody drags Jesus' name through the mud or burns the Bible virtually in front of them, you either have to leave or speak up, because if you just stay there silently, you're giving approval. And I don't know, if you can't stand up and fight, then at least just say, I'm sorry, I can't stick around. I don't like this happening. And that's all anybody has to do. But what really bugs me is the silence, because if there's people taking this much heat, like you've taken, for example, all of us have taken, and the other Christians won't even back us up, it isn't the I don't want to say always an excuse, but if it's not your thing to do, at least give us some moral support, and don't give support instead to the people who are throwing, shooting arrows at us. That's really not a whole bunch to ask, I don't think.
Oh, well said. All I'm asking is that for you not to be ashamed. Let me,
right.
I'm going to try to mute you again real quick. See if I can do this.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, I still can't do it. Sorry. No, I just know it's going to annoy people in the chat too. There we go. I'm asking you, Christians, do not be ashamed. I know it's going to be hard. Yeah, it's taking its time. It's gonna fix itself in a second.
Sorry,
So when
I'll
somebody
try again.
asks you, go ahead. When somebody asks you something, I'm just asking you to be honest with them. And guess what? You are one of the few, the less than 0.001% of the world right now that happens to know the truth, because we are in this satanic age of information. So it's fallen in our laps and we can use our eyes. Do not be ashamed. If I mean, and I'm sorry this is going to sound weird, but if an 11-year-old boy asked you a question like, what's the shape of the earth? Guess what? Now you get to tell them the truth for the first time in our lives. I don't care what their parents say. I'll say it right in front of their parents. Yeah, it's a flat earth. You'll figure it out. That's the reality. Jesus Christ is the only way. Sometimes those thorns in the eye, that's, that ice pick in the face, that pepper spray of truth is the greatest thing you can ever do. And it was hard to say. But actually, it should be easier to say because you're destroying evil as you're doing it. Do not be ashamed of the truth. Remember, all logic leads to truth. All truth leads to Jesus Christ. So why should we be ashamed of the truth? Yes, the earth and everything in its inhabitants was made in 1 week. There is no evidence for anything else. The only foundation of truth that has ever existed says so right here on the first few pages. There is no other truth. And a few pages later, everything had to be killed off. That happened, and there was only one boat and one family. Oh, are you saying that all the people in the world came from one family? No, I'm saying all the people in the world came from no people. Makes way more sense. I mean, is this really a tough subject, people?
Right.
That's why it's so crazy. It's so easy now. Do you realize out of the thousands of people? Oh, it's a bad echo there.
It's a bad echo there.
Sorry.
Go ahead and turn it
I'll
off.
unmute.
No problem.
I'll mute again. All right.
All these people that are coming across, do you realize how much power especially you ladies have now? This is the first time there's ever been women's liberation in history. Finally, you ladies are at the same level. We are all at the same level now because of this biblical truth. There is no other truth that gives women any rights. This is the only truth that puts women on top. Period. End of story. And now you have the ability, and no man can tell you what to believe. No man can call you stupid now. You get to laugh at them. Now, for the first time ever, women have taken control now. And I've seen it. There was a lady named Tiffany that was on Poncho's show a year ago who would, just laugh at these scoffers. And it's like, wow, I've never heard this before. I've never heard a time where women were able to destroy men in a conversation. It's a beautiful thing to me. It's a wonderful balance now. This has never happened in history. Ladies, you have been given the power that you've never thought you'd even have. I mean, we've all been persecuted our whole life, but let's face it, women have had the short end of the stick. And maybe some people with certain skin colors as well have. Maybe that is true. Guess what? This is the only truth liberation in history. Now we are finally all in Christ. That's the point. There's no Jew, Gentile, male, or female. We're here. We made it. You are literally now been given the armor of God. Do not be ashamed of it shining, because it is going to shine very bright, and some people are going to be blinded. That's not your problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's their problem. Don't worry about it. It's going to be just fine.
And that's what I like about you. You stand up for us. Somebody's got to do it, right? But
well,
that's the thing, is
I
we
guess
got to
so.
stand up for each other.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what Christians are supposed to do. It's supposed to be something unique. There's Jews, Gentiles, and the Church of God are mentioned. 3 groups of people. We're a new creation, not the old one. Jesus said, not so among you. So anybody, for any reason, trying to take authority over other people doesn't get the gospel. I mean, not saying they're not saved. They just don't get it. They don't get what it's about. It's about turning everything upside down it was turned upside down, with sin, but turn it right side up again, where there is no struggle for authority or control. There is no division because you're different, And even with Adam and Eve, when Eve was made, the first thing Adam said was not how different she was, but how the same she was. She wasn't like the animals. She was like him. She was made from him. So she was his clone. So these were 2 of the same class of being. And that this is just something that we're supposed to be going back to as Christians, not perpetuating the sinful state and going back, because Jesus is called the last Adam, not the last Moses or the last Noah. He's the last Adam. So we have come through Jesus, we come full circle, where we're back to where everything is back the way it's supposed to be. But people inside the church want to put it back into vision mode, into sin mode, and just polish and shine it and make their hierarchies. And this is something I've been all over, but I'm not going to start anything again, but I think it's fair enough to let us talk about this, at least as what our convictions are, what I think the Bible is saying, and the fact that not even Jesus stood up for his rights as God. In Philippians 2:5-11, he says he did not think of his godhood as something to be jealously clung to, but he set it aside and humbled himself, even to the point of going to the cross. And at the Last Supper, he washed his own disciples' feet and said, if you don't let me do this, you have no part with me, because that's what a Christian leader does. That's what anyone who wants to help the other Christians, that you're supposed to be a servant. You're supposed to be the person who gets under people to lift them up. That's the way it's supposed to be. And if somebody wants to claim that they're better than the other Christians, they got a serious misunderstanding of what Jesus came to do. They didn't apparently read Philippians 2:5-11. They didn't read the account of the Last Supper. They didn't read his rebuke to his power-tripping disciples who said, let us have great positions in your kingdom. He said, not so among you. Whoever wants to be waited on should be the waiter instead. And this is such a fundamental teaching and example of Jesus and the apostles. Even Paul said, that our authority is not to tear you down, but to build you up. And he came to a lot of people with such humility that they began to despise him. And this is just human nature. They like authority and they like hierarchy and they like division, but that's not supposed to be that way among you, Jesus said. And so we as a community, as a Christian community, have to get our act together, because the door is closing already. We're being shoved out just because we're Christians. And just because, they say there are other Christians who don't bother them. Well, of course they don't bother them. That's why they like them. Those are the good Christians, because they're the ones who don't smell like Christians, as the Bible even puts it. It says, you are the aroma of Christ. To those who are on the way to life, you are the fragrance of life. And to those who are on the way to destruction, you are the stench of death. And you can tell which person you're dealing with by how they react to the truth and react to your standing up for your faith. And not being mean about it, but just saying, look, I disagree. Here's what I believe. And that's the thing about a lot of these people who hit the ground running, especially in flat earth, by saying what they don't believe and talking about why they don't believe it. I mean, this is what I find most ironic about atheism. They define themselves by what they're not. They wouldn't exist without us. They're an anti-something. That's what these people are who hate Christianity. They make all their fame and following by trashing other people's belief system and their documents, and trying to tell us we don't even know how to interpret our own Bible. It's our Bible. It's not theirs. They don't tell us how to interpret it, and they don't have the right, as some do, to call us fools for interpreting it not the way the astrotheologists do, for example. I mean, what arrogance. And they call themselves humble, and they want to talk about humility while they tear people apart. It's just the most blatant hypocrisy. And we've just all had it, haven't we, Pillbox? I'll try to mute again before you respond here. It takes a while for my screen to respond. There you go.
Yep, very good. Let's see how long this takes. That seemed to be pretty quick. Yeah, and let me speak for Rand Campbell, since he's not here, and we do have his picture up, as I don't know if people are seeing Rand Campbell's picture when Paula talks, because obviously Rand did switch from the angel of a trumpet, which worked just fine. I don't know why he had to put his picture up there. That's okay, though. Rand Campbell is a great example of this. He says a lot of things too, and he's a very boisterous Christian, and some people have a problem maybe with some of the things he says, but guess what? His actions speak for him, and he's one of the first. So it's not just me who believes this, and I'm going to speak for Rand Campbell. He agrees with this concept. This idea is not just mine. Many men have woken up to this truth, and we know because of his fruits. And what did Rand do? Rand didn't say, okay, a pillbox is going to rule this hangout and it's going to be him, and then you ladies are going to have to be underneath. No, he said that Paula and Teal Summers and anybody who comes into this channel is going to be an owner. He didn't say you're going to be the vice president. He said you're all owners. So, again, let's look at the man's actions before we say, oh, I don't know about this and that, because I know there's some thoughts out there. There were some rumblings a while back. I want to straighten that out for you guys. Let's look at the actions of the man and see if there's anything wrong with him. There's not. If when it comes to this subject, Rand Campbell is 100% on board. That's why he doesn't say women are just going to be second in command. He says we're all owners in this body of Christ that get put into this platform. This is a very tiny platform, don't get me wrong, but we are equal here. And in the Bible, we're called elders. And I think that has to do with, a few different things, maybe knowledge, maybe experience. I don't know. But obviously, if somebody just woke up to the fact yesterday that they don't come from a monkey, but they think that women are still second class, they're not allowed. It's that simple. You don't qualify. If you think that, like I heard the one guy say, well, yeah, women are kind of equal, but I don't like listening to him preach. Okay, then get off the panel. Because actually, it turns out that right now in 2017, November 4th, it happens to be so that the most knowledgeable Christian speaker on the Bible happens to be a female right now. And I'm sorry, that is the truth. So if you're qualified, that's it. It doesn't matter. The other factors don't matter. What matters is your fruit. That's the reality. And that's how you're going to get to that point. So again, stay strong. No man can take anything from you anymore. That's over with. It's all over. It's gone. You're in Christ now. You're basically free. We're on the home stretch. Hold tight. Well, this was a pretty good hangout. Do we have any questions in the chat? Paul says I can't look at it right now. I was going to ask you.
I finally unmuted. I'm really lagging bad. I'm going to try to stop the watch page. Really laggy. Can anybody hear me? I don't even know.
You sound okay. Yeah, you're coming through really well. Yeah, you're coming through really well, though.
Okay, good. Yeah, like I said, I'm running a whole bunch of windows in 2 different browsers just so I could have 2 accounts open. I didn't know how else to do that to log in as Rand so I could run this because Pillbox can't run it in case anybody didn't know. And I cannot type in the chat. So I'm glad there's been moderators out there taking care of the trolls. And I did see a comment about trust, and that's a big issue I wanted to bring up too, because yeah, I can count on one hand probably the number of people online that I trust anymore. But it's not, when we talk about Patricia and Mark, it's not about trust. It's about innocent until proven guilty. Now, some people think there is proof of guilt. But on the other hand, here again, my little personal rules of engagement is they're not doing me any harm. They're not doing my friends any harm. They don't do hit pieces. And nobody can lead you astray unless you let them. There are people who are following, like I said, like Pied Pipers. There's other people who could literally do just about anything and people would applaud and send them money. Those are people doing harm. Nobody else, other than those apps that they probably didn't write, but they need to deal with that. I seriously think they need to deal with the app permissions and why do they have apps in the first place. I don't know. There are unanswered questions. But as people, they haven't done me any harm. I didn't download any apps. That's not a good thing to do anyway for most of the time. You got to be really careful what apps you download. You don't know what's going to be writing on it or who put it there. And I do know enough about writing apps in Java that, I don't know Java very well at all, but I looked into it. And there are certain what they call classes in any kind of object-oriented language where you come with certain things set as default, but it's your responsibility as a programmer to set those things the way they should be set. If you're letting those things go and putting out apps without checking those settings, you're a bad programmer. I'm sorry. That's just irresponsible. But when, let the buyer beware. If you're downloading apps off the internet, you're going to catch something more than likely. And so that by itself doesn't tell me anything, but it does say that if somebody writes an app for you, you need to really check it out. And if somebody brings to your attention that there are inappropriate abilities for that app to do things to your phone or your data, then you need to do something about it. That said, as people, I don't have a problem with them. I have more problems with those who are uncovering these things because of the kind of character they've displayed all these years in the chat rooms and sniping and trolling and trying to claim moral high ground while they do these things, and have the most vulgar speech all the time, and they, tear you down when you're not looking, and sometimes when you are. Those people have a right to call somebody out? I don't think so. And I'm considering the source of the criticisms and saying, look, it's at least, at best, a standoff, because the people who are doing the accusations don't have any room to talk. And so, I don't know all of them either, but I'm just saying, in general, the people who make the hit pieces and tear other people down are a bigger problem than the people who are allegedly ringleaders and leading Flat Earth astray. The ones who are accused of that are not the ones leading it astray. They're just having fun, as far as I can tell. And they haven't done me any harm. They haven't done my friends any harm. They haven't spread rumors about anybody. The people who spread the rumors and make the leaps of logic, if you can even call it logic, are the ones tearing apart the community, in my opinion. But no, I don't trust hardly anybody. There's very few people I trust. So just to kind of, try to put that in balance, and I will mute again. And if for any reason I can't unmute, I'll try to type in the back chat.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I see Victoria Sarton. God bless you, miss, for stopping by. I'm going to go back to the chat real quick. I saw Chow Young Cat. Man, look at that kitty. If you don't know God is real, look at that cat face. Let me tell you, that's an obvious depiction of God right there. You couldn't get any more godlike than that cat face. Somebody said something just now, but judgment isn't good, though, and I would have to say that's kind of a crazy statement, because if there's no judgment, there's no truth. If people are allowed to get away with crimes and there's no judgment, that's frighteningly scary. So why would somebody say they don't want judgment? Are you kidding me? The criminals that I see rule this world, do you think they shouldn't be judged for what they've done? I think you got to rethink that statement. Pete Van Veen in the building. Let me see who else is here right quick. I'm going to go back. This will take a second. Bear with me. I apologize. Bear with me. Let's see here. Uh-oh. Mark. Who's that? Mark Wasson. What up, Mon? We got Suzette-Ian. That's a nice name. Real Eyes. Billy Sunday. Who else we got here? Okay, Wayne Reck. I already said Pete Van Veen. What up, Mon? I got some hardcore Christians in the house, players, and that's all I need. 5 or 10. I mean, it's a church. This is what church is, ladies and gentlemen. We're 2 or more gather, like Paula says in her Hangouts. And I don't care if 2 people show up. I mean, it's like, is it important when you're talking to one person on the street? Of course it is. We're always going to be the smallest hangout in the world. This is pretty much the smallest group in the world. I mean, there are few, right? It makes sense to me. And it's been a fun night. We'll probably have to shut it down here soon. I did see Mr. Campbell in the chat. He wasn't able to join us tonight. Of course, he is extremely busy. I think he's building skyscrapers in the Dominican Republic. And last time I checked, he was really making some waves out there, getting an army built up for something. Man, that guy is just, he is unstoppable. They call him the mountain for a reason. So what time do you want to end tonight, Paula? I'm thinking pretty soon. What do you think?
Yeah, whenever. I could use a break. I'm sure you could too. And we've already had our wave of trolls. It seems to have slowed down, but then I think my chat window's frozen. I need to find maybe a spare computer sometime to run this because I'm trying to run 2 accounts right now, and it's not really working very well. So maybe next time Rain can run it, and we'll be able to, I'll just log in as me and not confuse people so much.
Well, this was good, though. We needed a big breakthrough. As you Christians know, we've had some issues recently. Oh, that's a bad echo right there.
Sorry, let me mute again.
No problem. Take your time with that. There you go. That was quick. So we're getting better. This is our first attempt at this. We've never done this the way we've done this on this platform, this particular way. I know it doesn't seem like anything special, but this was a first approach at this type of hangout that Paul and I are doing right now. And I think it worked out pretty well. Again, thank you for being the captain of the Red October today, Paula. You've done a phenomenal job. And I think we're going to cut it short real soon. If you want, why don't you give us some of your last words, and then you give me the opportunity to give my last words, and then shut it off. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, I'm glad that you could come. It's usually just me by myself on my channel, so I'm just happy to have anybody around. But especially you've been standing up for me, for all the ladies, especially as well, and not taking crap from anybody. Which, you know, like you said, there's not a whole lot of people who want to do that, and we all feel alone at times when we're trying to stand up and do these things. And that's, again, not to say that every Christian's supposed to get on the front line. I understand that, but at the same time, we need to not be ashamed and not, you know, try to turn the uniform inside out, so to speak, and pretend that we, you know, really don't want to be there. There's a line somewhere between those two extremes, and I think it would be helpful if, like I said, I think the bottom line for Christians is just to have each other's back, to at least not support people who are attacking the Christian faith, and to get together and not let these other teachings of division tear us apart the way they're tearing apart everything else. And to remember, we do have something to unify around, and that is that Jesus rose from the dead, and he will come back, and we are near the end of human history. And I know Rand wanted to talk about prophecy sometime. We didn't get to that, but I've got a lot of prophecy stuff, and I know you guys have perspectives, and there's a lot of crazy ideas going around right now. And so I'm sure we got lots of material, but I am hoping we can spend, you know, now we got this off our chest, I'll spend a lot less time talking about the people who don't want to hear anything rational or uplifting, and talk about what we do believe, you know, not be like them and talk about what we don't believe. Let's talk about what we do believe and why, and build each other up so we have the confidence to speak up when we need to. And Pillbox, take it away. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Paula. Yep, I think we've done an excellent job tonight. It is 7:39 west of the Rockies, south of the 33rd parallel. This is Flat Out Elected. I appreciate everybody joining us on the Red October. And thanks again, Rand, for letting us do this. Everybody in the chat who joined us, everybody who sees us afterwards, remember there is only one truth. Please keep your eyes on Christ until the end. Again, this is MG42 Pillbox. God bless you guys. Thanks again.